Amara was so close to the altar that when it happened, she felt the words land on her skin before her brain could process them. She had just finished adjusting the last arrangement and was turning to leave when 400 people sucked in air at the same time. She spun around. Jung-Ho Shin was looking directly at her. Not at his bride. Not at the priest. At her. Cancel the
Cancel the
wedding.
wedding.
I'll
I'll
marry
marry
her
her instead.
instead. His fiance's eyes found Amara's face like a blade finding its target. The room detonated. And Amara stood there, 3 feet from the altar, flowers pressed to her chest, staring at a man who was looking at her with the terrifying calm of someone who had been waiting a very long time to do exactly this. She had never seen him before today. He was looking at her like that was impossible. The priest opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No sound came out. In 31 years of conducting ceremonies, weddings, funerals, christenings, nothing in his entire career had prepared him for this particular sentence. The guests were on their feet, not all at once, in a wave, row by row, like people rising at a stadium when something unbelievable happens on the field. Whispers became murmurs, became full voices until the hall was carrying a sound that was somewhere between chaos and disbelief. Sio Yan did not move. That was the thing nobody would stop talking about afterward. How still she stayed. How her face didn't crumble, didn't flush, didn't do any of the things a woman's face is supposed to do when the man she is about to marry looks past her like she is furniture and selects the florist instead. She just stood at that altar in 14 months' worth of planning and 400 witnesses and held herself together with the particular discipline of a woman who had been raised never to bleed in public. Only her bouquet betrayed her. Her grip tightened until her knuckles went pale and the stems began to bend. Amara watched it happen and felt something cold move through her chest. She didn't know this woman, had never spoken to her, had spent 6 hours this morning making sure every flower in this hall was perfect for her wedding day. And now this woman was looking at her, not with tears, not with hysteria, but with the slow, measuring look of someone filing information away for later. It was somehow more frightening than if she had screamed. "Sir." The priest found his voice. Small, careful, the voice of a man choosing his words the way you choose your steps on uncertain ground. "Sir, perhaps we should—" I said cancel it. Jung-Ho hadn't raised his voice. He didn't need to. The room dropped immediately, instinctively, the way rooms full of dangerous people drop when the most dangerous person in them decides something is over. His mother was in the front row. She had not stood up with the rest of the guests. She was sitting perfectly straight, hands folded in her lap, looking at her son with an expression that was not anger. Anger would have been easier. It was the look of a woman doing rapid, precise calculations, adding up costs, measuring damages. She had survived her husband's world for 30 years by being the smartest person in every room she entered. And right now, every instinct she had was firing at once. She did not look at Amara. Not yet. Jung-Ho's sister, seated 2 chairs down from their mother, was doing the opposite. She had turned fully in her seat and was staring at Amara with huge eyes and an expression that on any other day might have looked like excitement. Amara noticed none of this, because Jung-Ho Shin was walking toward her. Not fast, not slow. The walk of a man who had made a decision and was now simply closing the distance between himself and it. The guests parted without being asked. Pure instinct. The automatic deference of people who understood, on a cellular level, that you did not stand in this man's way. Amara's feet did not move. She wanted them to. Every rational signal her brain was sending said, turn around, walk out, get to the door, get to the street. Get as far from this building as your legs will carry you. But something kept her feet exactly where they were. Not bravery, not stupidity. It's the specific paralysis of a person who understands that running would be the worst possible thing they could do right now. He stopped in front of her. Up close he was. She registered this against her will. extraordinarily still. Not the stillness of someone suppressing emotion. The stillness of someone who had so much control over themselves that stillness was simply their natural state. His eyes were dark and completely focused, and they were looking at her with an intensity that made her feel uncomfortably like being seen. Not looked at. Seen. She lifted her chin. "I don't know you," she said. Quietly. Steady. Because if her voice shook right now, she would never forgive herself. Something moved across his face. Not quite a smile. The ghost of one. "I know," he said. "Then you need to explain to me," Amara said, very clearly. "What exactly is happening right now?" Jung-Ho looked at her for a long moment. Around them, the room was still buzzing, still shifting, still trying to process the last 4 minutes of its existence. Sio Yan had still not moved from the altar. His mother had still not stood. "Not here," he said. "Yes," Amara said. "Here." The ghost of a smile again, closer this time. And then his head of security was at his shoulder, murmuring something low and urgent, and Jung-Ho's attention shifted for just a moment, just enough for Amara to look past him, back toward the altar, back toward the woman standing there in white. Seo Yan was looking directly at her, and in that look was something Amara recognized with the clarity of a woman who had grown up with very little and learned early to read rooms, read people, read danger before it announced itself. "This isn't over," that look said. "This is just beginning." Amara turned back to Jung-Ho Shin. "I'm going to need that explanation," she said, "and it better be the most honest thing anyone has ever said to me." He didn't explain anything that day. Not in the hall. Not in the car that appeared outside the venue 17 minutes later. Black. Silent. The kind of vehicle that didn't have a visible license plate. Not during the 40-minute drive through Seoul that Amara spent sitting as close to the door as physically possible, watching the city slide past the window and running through every decision that had led her to this exact moment. Taking the florist contract. Saying yes to the venue coordinator who had called her 3 weeks ago with a number that was frankly too good to turn down. Waking up at 4 a.m. to get the peonies right. Every single one of them had seemed reasonable at the time. Jung-Ho sat on the opposite side of the car and said nothing. He had loosened his tie exactly 1 centimeter. That appeared to be his version of unwinding. His security sat in the front. 2 of them. Neither had acknowledged her existence once. "Where are you taking me?" Amara said. Not a question. A statement that required an answer. "My home." "I didn't agree to go to your home." "You're here." She turned from the window and looked at him directly. "That's not the same thing, and you know it." He looked back at her. Something shifted in his expression. Something small, something she almost missed. Like her response had landed somewhere unexpected. "You're not in danger," he said. "That," Amara said, "sawing is exactly what someone would say if I was." The ghost of that almost smile again. It was starting to irritate her. She turned back to the window. The Shin residence was not what she expected, and she wasn't sure what she had expected exactly, but it wasn't this. A compound set back from the road behind walls that were tall enough to be a statement, but designed with enough restraint that from the outside it looked almost like discretion rather than fortress. Inside the gates, it opened up into something that felt more like a carefully controlled world than a home. Stone pathways, sculpted trees, staff who materialized and disappeared with the efficiency of people trained to be invisible. Amara stepped out of the car and stood very still for a moment. She was a florist from Mapo-gu who took the bus on Tuesdays. She did not belong here. She knew it. Every manicured stone beneath her feet knew it. And somewhere behind her, she was fairly certain Jung-Ho Shin knew it too, and had decided, with the particular arrogance of a man who had never been told no by the universe, that it didn't matter. He led her to a room that was clearly designed for conversations that required privacy. Dark wood, low lighting, two chairs positioned across from each other like a stage set for exactly this kind of moment. Someone had already placed tea on the table between the chairs. She didn't touch it. She sat. He sat across from her, and for the first time since the hall, with no guests, no priest, no fiancé watching, it was just the two of them and the silence and the weight of everything that had happened in the last 2 hours. "Talk," Amara said. Jung-Ho looked at her for a moment. Then he leaned forward, rested his forearms on his knees, and said, with the directness of a man who had decided that performance was beneath him, 3 years ago, Busousan, Tuesday morning, a market on Yungang-dairo. Amara's expression didn't change. "My men were clearing the path. You were at a stall. You refused to move." He paused. "You looked at me and said, I can still hear it. You can wait like everyone else." The room was very quiet. Amara was looking at him with the careful expression of someone searching a room they've been in before but can't quite place. "And then you went back to whatever you were buying," Jung-Ho continued. "Like I was nobody. Like the men around me, the cars. None of it registered as something to be afraid of." Another pause. "I walked around you." My men were stunned. Something moved in his jaw. I've thought about why I did that every day since. Amara sat with that for a moment. "I don't remember you," she said finally. "I know. I'm serious. I have no memory of that morning." "I know that too." She stared at him. "So let me make sure I understand this correctly." Her voice was measured, precise, the voice of a woman organizing chaos into something she could hold. "You canceled your wedding, in front of 400 people, because of a moment I don't even remember. A moment that lasted, 30 seconds? 20, he said. 20 seconds. Yes. Amara leaned back in her chair and looked at the ceiling briefly. When she looked back at him, her eyes were steady. "Jung-Ho Shin," she said. It was the first time she'd used his name. Something flickered in his face when she did. "That is either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the most terrifying. And right now, I genuinely cannot tell which." He said nothing. "What I can tell," she continued, "is that you're a man who is used to making decisions and having the world arrange itself around them. And I need you to understand something very clearly." She leaned forward. "I am not the world. I don't arrange myself around anyone." Jung-Ho looked at her. "I'm aware," he said quietly. "Then you understand that whatever this is, whatever you think this is, I'm going home tonight, to my apartment, in Mapo-gu. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and go to work and try to figure out how to explain to my next client why I'm missing a reference from the most high-profile wedding in Seoul." She stood. He didn't stop her. But as she reached the door, he spoke. "Your brother's name is Kofi." Amara's hand stilled on the door handle. "He's been difficult to reach lately. Your mother has been covering for him. She thinks you don't know how bad it's gotten." A pause. "You do know. You've known for about 6 months." She didn't turn around. "He owes my organization a significant amount of money." Jung-Ho's voice was completely even. No threat in it. No performance. Just facts being laid on a table. "I froze the collection the moment I realized who he was. Nobody has touched him. Nobody will, as long as I say so." Amara's hand dropped from the door. "I'm not telling you this to frighten you," he said. "I'm telling you because you asked for honesty. And you deserve to know exactly where you stand." The room was so quiet she could hear her own breathing. She turned around slowly. Jung-Ho was still sitting forward, forearms on his knees, watching her with that same terrible stillness. He hadn't moved, hadn't shifted into a power position, hadn't stood to emphasize the point. He was just sitting there, telling the truth. And somehow that was the most disorienting thing he'd done all day. "So what happens now?" she said. Her voice was still steady. She was proud of that. "Now," Jung-Ho said, "you sit back down." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she walked back to the chair. She didn't sit because she was afraid. She sat because she was smart enough to know that the next conversation, the real one, was the one that was going to determine everything. And Amara Mensah had never in her life walked away from a conversation she needed to have. She sat. And Jung-Ho Shin, for the first time since that Tuesday morning in Busan 3 years ago, looked like a man who had stopped holding his breath. The tea had gone cold. Neither of them had touched it. Amara sat with her hands folded in her lap. Not because she was calm, but because she had learned a long time ago that your hands were the first thing that betrayed you. Keep them still. Keep your face neutral. Give nothing away until you understand what you're dealing with. "How much?" she said. Jung-Ho looked at her. "Kofi's debt. How much does he owe you?" He told her. The number landed in her chest like something physical. She didn't flinch. She refused to. But her jaw tightened once, briefly before she controlled it. She had spent years sending money home. Years covering her mother's rent, her mother's medical bills, the quiet financial disasters that Kofi left behind him like footprints. She had done the math on her brother's chaos more times than she could count. She had never done it at this scale. "He can't pay that," she said. "No. And my mother certainly can't." "No. So." She looked at him directly. "What exactly are you proposing?" Jung-Ho was quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone choosing their words carefully. The quiet of someone who had already chosen them and was simply deciding when to release them. "Stay," he said. "Stay where?" "Here, in my world. Give this." He gestured between them, the small, precise gesture of a man unused to talking about things that didn't have clean names. "A real chance." Amara looked at him for a long time. "And if I do that," she said slowly, "Kofi's debt disappears. The debt is already frozen. It has been since the moment I found out who he was." His eyes didn't move from hers. "I'm not using it as a bargaining chip. I'm telling you it exists so that you understand the full picture. What you decide to do has nothing to do with Kofi." "That's easy to say. It's also true. You're a mafia boss," Amara said. Plainly, the way she might say you're a dentist or you're an accountant. Your truth and my truth are not the same thing. Something moved in his expression. Not offense. Something closer to respect. "Fair," he said. "So let me tell you my truth." She leaned forward slightly. "My truth is that I woke up this morning a free woman with a business I built from nothing, and a life that was mine. My truth is that I am now sitting in a room I didn't choose, in a house I didn't ask to come to, having a conversation that is going to change everything regardless of what I decide." She paused. "And my truth is that somewhere across this city, my brother doesn't know any of this is happening. He's probably asleep. Probably doesn't even know what today cost." Her voice didn't break, but it came close. Just once, on that last sentence, it came close. Jung-Ho watched her. He didn't fill the silence with reassurances, didn't lean forward with comfort she hadn't asked for. He just watched her the way he'd been watching her since the market in Busan, like she was something he was still in the process of understanding and had no intention of rushing. "What do you want from me?" Amara said. "Specifically. Not the version that sounds reasonable. The real version." A long pause. "I want the chance to be someone you choose," Jung-Ho said. "Not someone you're stuck with." The words were so unexpectedly plain that for a moment Amara had nothing to say. She had prepared herself for control, for possession, for the specific vocabulary of powerful men who dressed up ownership in the language of protection. She had not prepared herself for that. She looked away first. That irritated her. "I need conditions," she said. "Tell me." "I keep my apartment. I keep my business. I come and go as I need to for work." She looked back at him. "I am not a decoration, and I am not a prisoner. And if at any point this feels like either of those things, I walk. Kofi's situation notwithstanding." Jung-Ho nodded once. "I also need to understand something." Her voice dropped slightly, not softer, more precise. "The woman at that altar today, Sio Yan, what happens to her?" Something shifted in Jung-Ho's jaw. "That situation will be managed." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have right now." Amara studied him. "She's going to come for me." He didn't deny it. "I know," he said. "And you think you can protect me from that?" "I think," Jung-Ho said carefully, "that you don't need as much protecting as most people would in your position. But yes, whatever comes from today, I take responsibility for it. All of it." Amara sat with that. Outside the room, somewhere deep in the house, she could hear the faint sound of movement. Staff. Security. The quiet machinery of a world that had been running long before she arrived and would continue running regardless of what she decided in this chair. She thought about her apartment, her plants on the windowsill that needed watering, the order she had to fill by Thursday, a small wedding, nothing like today. A couple who had come into her shop 3 months ago holding hands and arguing cheerfully about whether peonies or ranunculus were better. She thought about Kofi, his face when he was 17 and she was 22 and she had found him crying in the kitchen at 2 a.m., and he had said, "I don't know how to stop, Amara. I genuinely don't know how to stop," and she had sat on that kitchen floor with him until morning because she didn't know what else to do. She thought about the number Jung-Ho had just told her. Then she stopped thinking about all of it and looked at the man across from her. "One more condition," she said. He waited. "You tell me everything. About your world, about the risks, about whatever is coming because of what you did today. I don't get managed. I don't get protected from information." Her eyes were steady. "I'm in this with full knowledge or I'm not in it at all." Jung-Ho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Everything," he said. Amara exhaled slowly. She didn't say yes. Not out loud. She simply picked up the cold tea from the table, took a sip without reacting to the temperature, and set it back down. Now Jung-Ho watched her do it. And something in his face, something underneath all that stillness and control, shifted into an expression that looked, if you were paying close attention, almost like relief. Neither of them noticed the door, or the shadow behind it that had been there for the last 4 minutes, or the sound of quiet footsteps retreating down the hallway. Jung-Ho's mother had heard enough. She didn't sleep that night. Not in the Shin residence. Amara had been firm about that. A car had taken her back to Mapo-gu at just past 9 in the evening, and she had walked up the 3 flights to her apartment, unlocked the door, stepped inside, and stood in the middle of her living room for a very long time without turning on the lights. Her plants were on the windowsill. The city hummed outside. Everything was exactly where she had left it this morning when she was just a florist with a contract and an early alarm. She watered the plants. She showered. She sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the wall and tried to organize the last 12 hours into something her brain could file away neatly. It refused. Because the thing about Jung-Ho Shin, the thing she kept circling back to no matter how many times she tried to approach it rationally, was that he had not behaved the way she expected. She had sat in that room braced for manipulation, for pressure, and for the specific performance of a powerful man who wanted something and was accustomed to getting it. She had prepared her defenses accordingly. He had simply told her the truth. No theater. No leverage dressed up as generosity. Just, here's what happened. Here is what I want. Here is what I'm willing to give you. Take it or leave it. She didn't know what to do with that. She lay down without getting under the covers and looked at the ceiling until somewhere around 3 a.m., her body gave up and pulled her under. Her phone woke her at 6:47. She looked at the screen. Kofi. She stared at his name for 3 full rings before she answered. Hey! His voice was the voice he used when he was trying to sound normal. She had known that voice since he was 14. You good? I'm fine, she said. You? Yeah, just checking in. A pause. Too casual. The kind of casual that was constructed. You did some big wedding yesterday, right? How'd it go? Amara closed her eyes. It was eventful, she said. Cool. Another pause. Listen, I might need to borrow. Kofi. Silence. I can't right now, she said quietly. I genuinely cannot right now. He didn't push. That was the thing about Kofi that broke her heart consistently. He never pushed. He asked, and when she said no, he retreated, and somehow that was worse than if he had argued. Because the retreating meant he knew. He always knew that what he was asking was too much. He just kept asking anyway. Okay, he said. Okay, that's fine. Just, are you sure you're good? I'm sure. All right, love you. Love you too. She hung up and sat on the edge of the bed with her phone in both hands. Her brother had no idea. He was out there somewhere in the city, borrowing and retreating and slowly drowning. And he had absolutely no idea that his debt had been sitting frozen in a file in a Mafia boss's office, or that his sister had spent last night negotiating the terms of her own life to keep it that way. She put the phone down, got up, made coffee, and was halfway through it when the knock came at her door. She set the mug down slowly. It was 7:15 in the morning. She crossed to the door, looked through the peephole, and felt her stomach drop. Not Jung-Ho. A woman she had never seen before. 50s, impeccably dressed. The kind of posture that wasn't learned in finishing school, but in decades of navigating genuinely dangerous rooms. No security visible behind her. But Amara understood instinctively that invisible didn't mean absent. She opened the door. The woman looked at her with the precise, unhurried assessment of someone who had made decisions about people in the first 10 seconds of meeting them for 30 years. Ms. Mensah, she said. Her Korean was clipped and exact. My name is Shin Myung-ja. A pause that wasn't really a pause. More like a period placed deliberately. I am Jung-Ho's mother. May I come in? Amara looked at her. Then she stepped aside. Shin Myung-ja entered the apartment the way she probably entered every room. Like she had already decided what she thought of it before she walked in. Her eyes moved across the space quickly. The plants on the windowsill. The flowers drying above the kitchen counter. The small framed photo on the shelf by the door. Amara and a woman who shared her eyes, standing in front of a market stall somewhere warm. She sat in the chair Amara indicated without being asked twice. Amara sat across from her with her coffee and did not offer tea. I'll be direct, Myung-ja said. Please, Amara said. The older woman looked at her. Something moved behind her eyes. Not warmth exactly, but the recognition of something she hadn't expected. My son made a decision yesterday that cost this family significantly. A political alliance we spent 4 years building. Business arrangements that will now need to be renegotiated from a weakened position. A rival family that will interpret what happened as instability in our leadership. She folded her hands in her lap. I am not here to undo what he did. Jung-Ho's decisions are his own. They always have been. Then why are you here? Amara said. Because you are now inside something you don't fully understand, Myung-ja said. And I watched you last night in that room with my son, and I could see that you are not a foolish woman, which means you deserve to understand it completely. Amara set her coffee down. The broken engagement, Myung-ja continued, has consequences that go beyond Sio Yan's feelings. Her father, Chairman Han, has withdrawn a protection arrangement that covered 3 of our key operations in the South. Without it, we are exposed in ways that our enemies will notice within weeks. She paused. They have already noticed. The rival organization, Amara said. Myung-ja's eyes sharpened slightly. He told you. He told me everything. That was my condition. A beat of silence. Yes, Myung-ja said. The rival organization. They have been watching this family for 2 years, waiting for a fracture. Yesterday, my son handed them one. She looked at Amara steadily. And you, Ms. Mensah, are the fracture, whether you intend to be or not. Amara held her gaze. I didn't ask for this, she said. I know that. Myung-ja's voice didn't soften, but something in it acknowledged the truth of it. That is perhaps the only reason I'm sitting in your apartment at 7 in the morning instead of doing what would be considerably more convenient for this family. The implication sat between them. Amara didn't look away. What is it that you want me to do? She said. Myung-ja was quiet for a moment. I want you to understand the weight of what you are walking into, she said finally. Not to frighten you away. My son has made his choice, and I have spent 53 years learning that the Shin men do not unmake their choices. Something moved briefly across her face. Grief, maybe, or something adjacent to it. I want you to walk in with your eyes open, because a woman who is surprised is a woman who is vulnerable. And a vulnerable woman in our world? She stopped. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Amara looked at this woman. At the controlled precision of her. At the thing underneath it that she was working very hard not to show. The fear. Not for herself. The specific fear of a mother who had already lost one person to this world and was watching her son pull someone new into it. I don't frighten easily, Amara said. No, Myung-ja said, studying her. I can see that. A silence fell between them. Not hostile, not comfortable. In something in between. The silence of 2 women taking each other's measure with the serious attention the moment required. Myung-ja stood. One more thing, she said. She reached into her bag and placed a card on Amara's coffee table. A phone number. Nothing else. If something happens and my son is not reachable, you call that number. Directly. Not as security, not as staff. Her eyes met Amara's. Me. Amara looked at the card, then up at Myung-ja. Why? She said. The older woman was already moving toward the door. Because, she said without turning around, whatever I think about yesterday, you are inside my son's protection now. And what is inside his protection is inside mine. She opened the door herself, paused. Water your plants more frequently, Ms. Mensah. The one by the left window is struggling. And then she was gone. Amara stood in the middle of her living room for a long moment. Then she walked to the left window. The plant was indeed struggling. She watered it, and tried very hard not to think about the fact that in the space of less than 24 hours, her life had become something she no longer recognized, and that the most grounding thing that had happened in all of it was a Mafia boss's mother noticing her dying plant. Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. But she knew before she opened it. 4 words. How did you sleep? Amara stared at it. Then, against every instinct she had, against every rational argument her brain was constructing in real time, she typed back. Worse than usual. You? 3 seconds. Better than I have in 3 years. She put the phone face down on the counter, picked up her coffee. It had gone cold. She drank it anyway. She went to work. That was the thing about Amara. The thing that had kept her functional through her father leaving, through Kofi's first arrest, through the years of building something from nothing in a city that didn't owe her anything. She went to work. Not because work solved anything, because the specific physical language of flowers, the cutting, the arranging, the quiet negotiation between stem and water and light, was the one place her brain could be fully present without the rest of life crowding in. She opened the shop at 9. By 9:15, her assistant Priya had arrived, taken one look at her face, and said absolutely nothing. That was why Amara had hired her. The Thursday order needed finishing. The small wedding, the couple who had argued about peonies versus ranunculus, and compromised on both. She pulled the flowers from the cooler and began. Her hands knew what to do even when the rest of her didn't. She was halfway through the centerpiece arrangement when the door opened. She didn't look up. "We're not open for walk-ins until 11, she said. "I know." Amara looked up. Sio Yan was standing in the doorway of her shop. Not in yesterday's wedding dress. In a cream coat, perfectly pressed, hair pulled back with the kind of effortless precision that took significant effort. She looked like she had slept perfectly. She looked like yesterday had not touched her at all. Only her eyes said otherwise. Priya appeared from the back room, took in the atmosphere with the speed of someone with good instincts, and disappeared again immediately. Sio Yan stepped inside. She looked around the shop slowly, at the flowers in the cooler, at the arrangements in progress on the work table, at the small handwritten price cards, at the photo on the wall, Amara at some industry event, shaking hands with a hotel events coordinator, both of them smiling. The inspection lasted long enough to be intentional. Then she looked at Amara. "You have a nice shop," she said. "Thank you," Amara said. She did not put down the flowers. Sio Yan moved to the work table and stood across from her. Close enough that the conversation was private. Far enough that it wasn't a confrontation. Yet. "I'm not here to make a scene," Sio Yan said. "I had enough scene yesterday to last me considerably." "Then what are you here for?" Amara said. "To look at you." She said it simply, directly, to understand what it is. What is? What you have that made Jung-Ho Shin lose his mind in front of 400 people and 11 years of careful planning. Her voice was perfectly controlled, academic almost, like she was discussing a business problem. "Because I have spent the last 18 hours trying to understand it, and I cannot." Amara set the flowers down. She looked at this woman properly for the first time, not the way she'd looked at her yesterday, with the shock and the chaos and the terror of the situation distorting everything. Properly, woman to woman. Sio Yan was beautiful in the way that certain women were beautiful. Not softly, not warmly, but with the precision of someone who had learned to weaponize every feature. She was also, Amara realized, exhausted underneath all of it. The kind of exhausted that one night of not sleeping doesn't explain. The kind that accumulates. "I don't have anything," Amara said. "I'm a florist. I arranged your wedding flowers. I didn't know who he was. I still barely know who he is." "I know that," Seo Yan said. "That's what I can't understand." A silence. "He looked for you," Seo Yan said. "After Busousan. Did he tell you that?" She didn't wait for an answer. "He came back from that trip different. I noticed it. I didn't know what it was. I assumed business. I assumed one of 100 things it could have been." A pause. "It was you. A woman he spoke to for 20 seconds who didn't know his name." Her voice stayed even, but something in it, something underneath the control, had a fracture running through it. "I spent 11 years being exactly what this family needed," she said. "Exactly what Jung-Ho needed. I understood his world. I understood the expectations. I was prepared to build something real inside all of it." She looked at Amara steadily, and he threw it away for 20 seconds. Amara said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Nothing that wouldn't be either a lie or a cruelty. Sio Yan looked at her for a long moment. "I want you to know something," she said. Her voice shifted slightly. Just slightly. The academic quality dropping away and something more direct coming through. I'm not going to pretend yesterday didn't happen. I'm not going to pretend I'm not angry. I am. I'm furious in a way I haven't been since I was young enough to show it. She picked up one of the flowers from the work table, a ranunculus, turned it in her fingers. But I also want you to know that my anger is not with you. She set the flower down. You didn't do anything. You were arranging flowers. What happened to you yesterday was not fair, and I am self-aware enough to recognize that. Amara studied her. So why are you here? She said. Sio Yan looked at her directly. Because I wanted to see if you were worth it, she said. If there was something in you that made sense of it. Something that explained why a man like Jung-Ho would... She stopped. Composed herself with the speed of long practice. And because I wanted you to see me. Not the woman at the altar. Me. So that whatever happens next, you know who you're dealing with. The shop was very quiet. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past. Somewhere down the street, someone was playing music. And what does happen next? Amara said. Sio Yan picked up her bag. That, she said, depends entirely on Jung-Ho. She moved toward the door, stopped with her hand on the frame. He is not who you think he is. He is also not who he thinks he is. She glanced back. Figure out which version is real before you decide anything. She left. The door closed behind her. Amara stood at her work table for a long moment. Then Priya's head appeared from the back room. Should I ask? She said. No, Amara said. Okay. Priya disappeared again. Amara picked up the ranunculus Sio Yan had set down. It was slightly bent where she'd held it. Not broken, just altered. She worked it back into the arrangement carefully. Her phone buzzed. Jung-Ho. She came to see you. Amara stared at the message, then typed, Are you having me watched? The response was immediate. I have someone on the building, for your safety, not to monitor you. That's the same thing. It's not. Jung-Ho. Amara. She almost smiled, caught herself. Call off whoever is on the building. A pause. Longer than the others. No? She put the phone in her pocket, picked up her flowers, went back to work. But the ranunculus stayed slightly bent, and she kept thinking about what Sio Yan had said. Figure out which version is real before you decide anything. The problem she was not ready to say out loud yet, was that she was starting to want to find out. And wanting things in this situation was dangerous. She knew that. She trimmed a stem too short. She never trimmed stems too short. She put the scissors down, breathed, picked them back up, kept working. 3 days passed. Nothing dramatic happened in those 3 days. No black cars outside her building, no unexpected visitors at the shop, no more messages from unknown numbers belonging to women who had every right to hate her, but had chosen something more complicated instead. Just Jung-Ho. He texted every morning. Not good morning, he wasn't that kind of man. Just small things. Observations. A question about something she'd mentioned in passing. The first morning it was, You said you take the 6:15 bus on Tuesdays. Why not the 6:45? She had stared at that message for a full minute before answering. Because the 6:15 is less crowded and I can think. What do you think about? Everything. Nothing. The orders for the week. A pause. Do you think about Busousan? She had put the phone down and not answered that one. He didn't push. That was the thing about him that kept catching her off guard. He never pushed. He asked, and if she didn't answer, he simply waited, with the patience of a man who had decided that time was on his side and saw no reason to argue with that. It was infuriating. It was also, she was ashamed to admit, a relief after a lifetime of people who pushed. On the fourth day, he asked to see her. Not a demand, not a statement. An actual question. The kind with a question mark at the end. Have dinner with me tonight, if you want. She read it standing in the cooler section of the flower market, surrounded by the smell of cut stems and cold air, a bucket of white tulips in each hand. She thought about saying no. She thought about the ranunculus she kept trimming wrong. Where? She typed back. He sent an address. She looked it up. Not a restaurant she knew. Small, tucked into a side street in Yongsan. The kind of place that didn't have a sign outside and didn't need one. Fine, she wrote. She went back to her tulips. Priya noticed her humming 40 minutes later and had the extraordinary self-control to say absolutely nothing. She wore what she always wore. Well cut, simple, nothing that announced itself. She was not dressing for him. She was dressing for herself the way she always did. That was what she told herself on the bus. The restaurant was exactly what the address had suggested. Small, warm, 4 tables maximum. A menu that was handwritten and changed daily. The kind of place that existed in every city for the specific purpose of conversations that needed privacy without the theater of obvious privacy. Jung-Ho was already there. He stood when she walked in. She hadn't expected that. She sat down across from him and tried to remember the last time a man had stood when she entered a room and came up empty. You found it, he said. It took some finding, she said. That's the point. She looked at him across the small table. In the wedding hall he had been. Enormous was the wrong word, but the presence of him had been enormous. The suit, the 400 guests, the weight of what he'd just done radiating off him. Here he was just a man. Dark jacket, no tie. The same quality of stillness, but somehow less weighted by context. She didn't tell him he looked different. Sio Yan came to my shop, she said. I know. I want to know what you're going to do about her. He looked at her. What would you have me do? I'd have you be honest about the damage you caused her. Not to me, to her. Something moved in his jaw. I've spoken to her, he said. And it was a conversation I won't repeat to you. Because whatever I did to that situation, she deserves that much privacy. Amara looked at him. She hadn't expected that either. Fair, she said. The food came. Simple, precise, at the kind of cooking that was confident enough not to need decoration. She ate because she was hungry and because she refused to be the woman who didn't eat at dinner. They talked. Not about the wedding. Not about Kofi. Not about the rival organization or the broken alliance or any of the things that circled their situation like weather. He asked about her work. Not politely, with actual curiosity. The specific curiosity of someone who had spent their entire life in a world of transactions and power and found the idea of someone who spent their days thinking about flowers genuinely interesting. She told him about the couple with the peonies and the ranunculus. The argument, the compromise, the way the woman had looked at the man while they were arguing like the argument itself was something she enjoyed. That's what you want, Jung-Ho said. What? That. What you just described. Amara looked at him. Doesn't everyone? She said. He was quiet for a moment. I wouldn't know, he said. Simply, without self-pity. Just a fact being placed on the table the way he placed all his facts. She looked at him properly then. At this man who had grown up inside something that left no room for ordinary things. Who had inherited a world that ran on fear and precision and the specific loneliness of people who couldn't afford to be known. Who had seen a woman in a market tell him to wait his turn and spent 3 years carrying it because it was the closest thing to ordinary he'd felt in longer than he could name. She looked at him and felt something shift. Not dramatically. Not the way it happened in the stories her mother used to read. The thunderclap, the sudden certainty. Something quieter. A door opening a centimeter that had been closed. She looked away. Tell me about Busan, she said. The whole day, not just the market. He looked at her. Why? Because I want to remember it, she said. And you were there, so tell me what you saw. A pause. And then Jung-Ho Shin, a man who spoke in short sentences and precise facts and gave nothing away that wasn't deliberately given, started to talk. He told her about the morning, the business he'd been there for, something he summarized briefly and she didn't press. The way the city had felt different from Seoul, slower, the salt in the air from the water. His men had wanted to eat somewhere secured and private, and he had said no. He wanted to walk. They had thought he was testing them. He wasn't. He was just tired. Tired in the way that had nothing to do with sleep. He told her about the market, the crowd, the smell of fish and frying and something sweet he couldn't identify. His men clearing the path the way they always did, efficiently, without drama, because that was their job. And then her. He described her the way someone describes a thing they have looked at so many times in their memory that every detail is precise. The stall she was at. The way she was leaning forward, examining something on the table with the focused attention of someone who took small things seriously. The moment his men tried to move her and she straightened up and looked at them, and then past them, at him. You weren't afraid, he said. I didn't know I should be, she said. I know, that was... He stopped. What? He looked at her across the table. Everything, he said quietly. The restaurant had emptied without either of them noticing. The owner was moving quietly near the back, giving them the specific courtesy of pretending not to exist. Amara turned her glass slowly in her hands. I remember the market, she said. Jung-Ho went very still. Not you, she said quickly. I don't remember you specifically, but I remember that morning. I was there looking for ranunculus. The vendor I usually bought from in Seoul had raised his prices, and someone had told me about a grower who sold at that market on Tuesday mornings. She paused. I remember some men trying to move me, and I remember being annoyed because I'd been standing there for 20 minutes waiting for the vendor to finish with another customer, and I wasn't about to lose my place. She looked up. I remember thinking whoever was behind those men must be very important or very insecure, and either way, it wasn't my problem. Something happened on Jung-Ho's face. It started somewhere around his eyes and moved slowly, like light changing in a room when a cloud passes. And then, for the first time since she had known him, for the first time in what she would later learn was a very long time for anyone who knew him, Jung-Ho Shin laughed. Not a polite sound, not controlled. A real laugh, short and sudden and slightly helpless, the laugh of a man ambushed by something he didn't see coming. Amara stared at him. He pressed his hand briefly to his mouth and got it back. But his eyes were still doing something she had no name for. Important or insecure, he said. I was annoyed, she said. I'd been standing there 20 minutes. I know. I watched you stand there. You watched me. For about 4 minutes before my men moved. Something in his expression shifted into something more honest than she'd seen from him yet. I told them to wait. They thought I was being strategic. I was watching a woman argue with a flower vendor about whether Tuesday stock was fresher than Thursday stock. Amara blinked. It is fresher on Tuesdays, she said. I believe you, he said. She looked at him. He looked at her, and the centimeter that door had opened earlier, quietly, without drama, opened a little further. She picked up her glass. I owe you an apology, she said. For what? For not remembering you. She paused. That's not... I know it sounds strange, but you've been carrying that morning for 3 years and I wasn't even... She stopped. It doesn't seem fair. Jung-Ho was quiet for a moment. Don't apologize, he said. That's exactly what made it what it was. His voice was low, even. You weren't performing for me. You weren't aware of me. You were just a pause. Yourself. Completely. Without any calculation. He said the last word like it was something rare. Like it was something he had been looking for in every room he'd ever entered and found everywhere except where he needed it. Amara set her glass down. Jung-Ho. Yes. I need you to understand something. She looked at him directly. I am always myself. In every room. Regardless of who's in it. A pause. That's not remarkable. That's just who I am. And if that's what this is built on, some idea of me as this rare, uncalculating thing. It's not, he said. Then what is it built on? He looked at her for a long moment. Honestly, he said, I'm still finding out. She held his gaze. It was the most honest thing he could have said. She knew that. She also knew that she was going to get on the bus home tonight and sit in her apartment and water her plants and try very hard to talk herself back from the edge of something. She suspected it wasn't going to work. Outside the restaurant, the city moved and hummed and went about its business, completely indifferent to the two people inside, discovering, slowly and against considerable odds, that they might be in the process of building something neither of them had a name for yet. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it out of habit. Froze. The message was from a number she didn't recognize. Not Jung-Ho's number, not Kofi's, not anyone in her contacts. 4 words. Enjoy your dinner, florist. Her stomach dropped. She looked up. Jung-Ho was already looking at his own phone. His face had changed completely. The man who had been laughing 30 seconds ago, who had been sitting across from her open and honest and almost unguarded, was gone. In his place was the other version, the version from the wedding hall. Still, controlled, dangerous in the specific way of someone doing rapid calculations behind perfectly composed eyes. Jung-Ho. He looked up. Who sent that? She said. He looked at her phone. His jaw tightened once. Show me, he said. She turned the phone toward him. He looked at it for 3 seconds. Then he was on his own phone, already typing, already moving. And 2 minutes later, his security was at the door of the restaurant and the quiet dinner and the open door and the laughing and all of it folded up and put away like it had never existed. Just like that. Welcome to his world. Amara sat very still in her chair and looked at her phone. Enjoy your dinner, florist. Someone had been watching. Someone who knew where she was, who she was with, what she was. Not his security. Someone else. Jung-Ho crouched beside her chair suddenly, not looming over her, not pulling her up, just level with her, eye to eye. Are you all right? He said. She looked at him. I told you I don't frighten easily, she said. I know. I meant it. I know that too. His voice was low. His eyes hadn't left hers. But I need you to listen to me right now. We need to leave. My car is outside. I'll take you home and I'll have someone on your building tonight. Not to watch you. To watch the street. Jung-Ho, Amara. Just her name. Quiet and absolute. Please. She looked at him for a moment. Then she picked up her bag. Stood. Whoever sent that, she said. Yes. That's the rival organization. It wasn't a question. He didn't insult her by treating it like one. Yes, he said. She nodded once, walked toward the door. Outside the city was the same city it had always been, but it looked different now. Everything did. The car ride was silent, and not the silence of the first night, when she had sat pressed against the door watching the city and cataloging every mistake that had led her there. This silence had a different texture. Tighter. The kind that forms when two people are in the same emergency but processing it at different speeds. Jung-Ho sat beside her this time. Not across. Beside. She noticed that. His security was in the front, the same two from the first night. The city moved past the windows and nobody said anything, and Amara sat with her hands in her lap and thought about 4 words. Enjoy your dinner, florist. Not a threat exactly. Not yet. Something more precise than a threat. A demonstration. We know where you are. We know what you are to him. We know you don't belong in this world, and we are watching you not belong in it. It was the kind of message designed to make a person feel small. She refused to feel small, but she also wasn't going to pretend her hands weren't cold. How long have they been watching me? She said. Jung-Ho didn't hesitate. Probably since the wedding. 4 days, yes. And your security, the person on my building, saw nothing unusual until tonight. His voice was flat in the way of someone angry at themselves. They're careful. They wouldn't have shown themselves unless they wanted you to know. They wanted me to know, Amara said. Yes. Why? He was quiet for a moment. Because frightening you is easier than coming at me directly, he said. If you leave, if the situation dissolves on its own, they don't have to spend the resources of a direct confrontation. They just have to make you uncomfortable enough to walk away. Amara turned to look at him. That's their strategy, she said. Make the woman run. Yes. She turned back to the window. That's lazy, she said. Something shifted in Jung-Ho's expression. Not quite the laugh from dinner, but adjacent to it. It usually works, he said. I'm not usually, she said. The car pulled up outside her building. She didn't move immediately. Tell me about them, she said. The rival organization. Everything you told me you'd tell me. Not tonight. Yes, tonight. She turned to face him fully. You said everything. I'm holding you to that. Who are they? How dangerous are they? And what exactly do they want? Jung-Ho looked at her. The streetlight came through the window at an angle that caught the side of his face. The jaw, the sharp line of his cheekbone, the particular quality of his stillness that she was beginning to understand was not coldness, but concentration. He was always concentrating. On everything. On her. Their name is the Beck Organization, he said. They've operated in Seoul for about 15 years. Smaller than us, but more aggressive. They've been trying to expand into territory we control for the last 2 years. A pause. Chairman Han's protection arrangement covered several of those territories. Without it, we have gaps. Gaps they'll move into. Gaps they're already moving into. His jaw tightened. The broken engagement gave them a window they've been waiting for. They would have manufactured one eventually. I handed it to them early. Because of me. Because of my choice, he said. Not because of you. There's a difference. She looked at him. Does that difference matter to the people affected by it? She said. He held her gaze. No, he said. It doesn't. She appreciated that he didn't dress it up. What do they want specifically? She said. Ideally, for us to be weakened enough that they can take the southern territories without a war. A war costs everyone. They know that. We know that. He paused. If they can destabilize us internally, cause enough chaos that our operations fracture, they get what they want without the cost. And I'm the chaos, Amara said. You're the symbol of it, he said. A nobody florist. He stopped. Say it, she said. A woman with no connections, no family power, no strategic value, chosen over a political alliance. He said it evenly, without apology. To them, it reads as instability, as a leader who has let personal feeling override strategy. Has he? Amara said. Jung-Ho looked at her. Yes, he said. Just that. No qualification. No defense. Just the plain truth sitting between them in the back of the car on a quiet street in Mapo-gu. Amara looked at him for a long moment. Then she opened the car door. "Come upstairs," she said. Jung-Ho went very still. Amara, not for that. A pause. "I'm going to make coffee, and you're going to tell me everything else. All of it. Tonight." She met his eyes. "Because whoever sent that message tonight did it to make me feel like I don't belong in this. And the best way I know to fight that feeling is information." She got out of the car. Waited. He looked at her through the open door for a moment. Then he said something brief to his security in Korean, and got out. They walked up the 3 flights in silence. She unlocked the door, turned on the lights. The apartment settled around them. Small, warm, alive with plants and drying flowers and the accumulated quiet of a life built carefully and independently. Jung-Ho stood just inside the door. He looked around the apartment the way his mother had, but differently. Not assessing. Taking it in. The way someone looks at a place that tells them something true about a person. "Sit down," Amara said from the kitchen. He sat. She made coffee. Real coffee. Not the instant she sometimes defaulted to on tired mornings, but the proper kind. Slow and deliberate. She needed the ritual of it. The small controllable process in the middle of everything uncontrollable. She brought 2 cups and sat across from him. He looked at the apartment again. "You built this," he said. "Not a question." "Every piece of it," she said. He nodded slowly, like that confirmed something. "Tell me about your family," she said. "Not the organization, your family, because I've met your mother and she is—" She paused, choosing the word carefully. "A lot. And I want to understand where you come from before we talk about where you are." Jung-Ho looked at her. Then he picked up his coffee. And he talked. He talked about his father, a man who had built the Shin organization from something regional and rough into something that operated with the precision of a corporation. A man who was brilliant and controlled and completely unreachable in the ways that mattered to a child. Who had looked at his son and seen a successor before he'd seen a person. He talked about his mother. How she had navigated that marriage with the specific intelligence of a woman who understood that love inside that world was a liability unless it was managed. How she had protected her children not with warmth. Warmth was dangerous, warmth could be used, but with strategy. With walls built so carefully, they looked like strength. "She loves you," Amara said. "I know," Jung-Ho said. "She came to my apartment at 7 in the morning. Something moved in his expression. "I didn't know she'd done that." "I know you didn't." Amara looked at him. "She told me things you hadn't told me yet, about the broken alliance, the exposure." A pause. "She did it because she wanted me to understand what I was walking into, not to scare me off." She tilted her head slightly. "I think she was trying to protect me in the only way she knows how." Jung-Ho was very still. "Walls built so carefully they look like strength," Amara said quietly. He looked at her. "You got that from one conversation," he said. "I grew up watching my mother do the same thing," she said. A silence. Not the tight silence of the car. Something looser. The silence of 2 people who have said something true and are sitting with the weight of it. "Tell me about your sister," Amara said. And just like that, just from the shift in his face at the mention of her, Amara understood that this was the one person in Jung-Ho's world who had gotten through the walls. "Her name is Jia," he said. And his voice changed. Something in it softened by approximately the same degree that everything else about him was hard. "She's 24. She wants to be a photographer. My mother thinks it's impractical. I think—" He stopped. "What do you think?" Amara said. "I think she should do it," he said. "I think she should do exactly that and nothing else and never come near any of this." He said it quietly, with a fierceness underneath the quiet that had nothing to do with the organization or the rivals or any of it. Just a brother. Just that. Amara looked at him. The door opened another centimeter. Does she know that? Amara said. That you want that for her. She knows I won't stop her, he said. That's not the same thing. He looked at her. No, he said. It's not. Amara picked up her coffee. Tell her, she said. Not the permission, the wanting, that you want it for her. A pause. People need to hear the wanting. The permission alone just feels like a door being unlocked. It doesn't feel like someone is glad you're walking through it. Jung-Ho was quiet for a long moment. He was looking at her with that expression again. The one she didn't have a name for. The one that had been on his face in the restaurant before the message came and folded everything away. How do you do that? He said. Do what? Say the thing, he said. The exact thing. Without... He stopped. Seemed to decide something. Everyone around me speaks in layers, subtext. Everything has a secondary meaning, a hidden angle. It's exhausting in a way I stopped noticing because I've never known anything else. He looked at her. You just say the thing. It's faster, Amara said. It's more than faster. She met his eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, the whole situation fell away. The organization, the rival's message, Kofi's debt, Sio Yan's look in the flower shop, all of it. Just two people in a small apartment at 11 at night with cold coffee and the particular fragile thing that was forming between them that neither of them had a safe name for yet. Then her phone buzzed. They both looked at it. Unknown number. Her stomach tightened. She picked it up. It wasn't a message. It was a photo. Kofi, standing outside what looked like a convenience store, jacket collar up, unaware of the camera. Taken recently. She could tell from what he was wearing. He'd had that jacket for 3 months. Nothing else. No words. No caption. Just the photo. Just her brother. Just... We know where he is, too. Her hand tightened on the phone. Jung-Ho was already beside her. He'd moved without her noticing. One moment across the table, the next beside her, looking at the screen with an expression that had gone completely flat in the way of someone converting emotion directly into action. Don't, Amara said. He looked at her. Don't do whatever you're about to do, she said. Her voice was steady, steadier than she felt. Not tonight, not reactively. She put the phone down. That's what they want. They want you reactive. They want you making moves from emotion.